Hi, guys. My name is David. I am excited to talk about this. The first thing that I'd like to do is introduce who I am and what I like doing. My name is David Kramer. I am trying to study the scriptures better in this mess. Uh, let's just jump right into it. I want to talk about Exodus 3 and some of the fun thoughts that I've had about this in the past. So let's understand what's happening in this. First of all, this is Moses. He's out with his father-in-law. He's keeping the flocks. This is after he's fled Egypt, and he has many experiences both with his father-in-law's family and with God. This is an experience with God that we're going to be talking about that I think are incredibly, um, I don't know, clearly incredibly important to Israel and us as humans, but also to him. And they're passed down in this story that seems to have been passed down mostly word of mouth. And so we're getting the story in a very descriptive manner that would have probably been told from person to person and maybe acted out. But it makes it because it's not primarily written down. It makes it an interesting format. Um, so that brings a bunch of questions like, what is the purpose of this story? What is it trying to show? Because I think it's trying to tell more than it lets on. And first of all, anytime I'm gonna say this a million times, anytime I talk about the scriptures, there's probably more than just uh, this or that. There's probably a bunch of ands. Sometimes I'll have strong opinions and I'll say, I think that this is the majority of what's going on. But most of the time I'll say that is probably going on as well. So when I look at this right now, I'm looking at this through a very strong temple lens. And so let's kick this down a little, um, just so there's slightly less background in there. But that means that like every single thing that I see, I'm going to be looking at it and I'll be like, I see the temple in there, and not every single thing, but most things. And you'll be like, that means you're seeing the temple and everything because you're looking at it literally through that lens, and maybe you're putting that on there. Could be. But I think it's a fun experience and I think it's good for me. So let's go for it. Um, I can give more background later, but that's enough for now. So let's start with reading Exodus 3. So, chapter 3, verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father in law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. First of all, there's so many things going on just right there. His his father-in-law, who was the priest of Midian, that means that there's some sort of priesthood going on. There's some sort of uh, pre-established interaction between his father-in-law and God, and Moses had access to that. Secondly, Moses was keeping the flock, and I think that was probably a literal flock, but at the same time, that's a symbol of Christ. That's a symbol of every prophet. That's a symbol of anyone that keeps the flock of the people. And so, right there, we're being told something about Moses as well. And then he comes to the mountain of God. And what is the mountain of God? I think anytime it says mountain in the scriptures, we have to look at it twice and say, I think that that's probably temple. So he came to the temple. Um, I have let me see if I have it in front of me. I did have the my favorite scripture when I'm trying to understand the Hebrew behind it. I use Bible Hub. Um, so I had that in front of me. I think I accidentally closed it. So let's open it again. But let's go to Exodus 3. And at some point when I do this more and get more comfortable, I'll be able to share it on the screen. But right now, that's not where I am. So Exodus 3. Yeah, let's try just because why not? So I'm on Exodus 3, and let's look through here if there's anything interesting that we can see. Um, there's stuff that's important for the future, maybe not for now, but they talk about Cohen, and Cohen means priests. And so I think that's a really important thing to know for the future because there's just so many references to Cohen, and we need to look that up. I'd like to talk about midbar at some time. Um, this word midbar means a bunch of things, but that's not the point of the conversation. But it means wilderness, in this instance, desert. But it's also constructed from the words DBR, DBR right here. And that has extremely important temple things because the third room in the Hebrew temple is the Devir. Okay, and I'd like to say this as well. I don't speak Hebrew, so I'm learning. I want to learn, but that means that if you have insight or I'm saying something wrong, please correct me. I would love that. But Devir is the third room in the temple. That's the Holy of Holies. So seeing all of that in conjunction, we have priest, we have midbar, which means desert, but Devir, and then we have a mountain, and we're talking temple right away. Just immediately, we're talking temple. So the next thing, verse 2. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. I am a huge believer that a lot of the times when it says angels, like this is for the Book of Mormon for sure, but in the Bible as well, a lot of the times I think they're talking about, remember, layers. This could be so many things, but I think they're talking about temple workers, people in the temple. Angel usually just means messenger. And so there's a lot going on there already, but I think they mean temple workers. So I'm looking at the Hebrew right now, and I don't see anything else that stands out to me, but that's also, like I said, because I don't speak Hebrew. But this is clearly an incredible moment in Moses's journey. He's looking at this and he sees someone helps him, an angel, and he says, look at this, and he sees this fire, this bush, and it's not being consumed. And there's stuff going on there that we don't understand. There's probably cultural stuff. But either way, it's a physical anomaly. It's something that entices him. And so Moses in verse 3 says, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. What I was saying before about it being probably like passed down verbally, I think that means that we're going to get some words here which help connect the different layers in the story, but maybe aren't precisely necessary or how it was, but it connects the plot points in a way that makes it easy to recount to the next generations. So verse 4, this is the whole reason I'm talking about this right now. So let's go into verse 4. And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, so when the Lord saw that Moses had decided to do whatever the angel said, to look at the bush, to to come to the temple, come to the mountain, and investigate, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. So that's the English of it. And I think there's a lot of good lessons we can get from it, but the Hebrew in my mind adds a lot. So let's go for the Hebrew. We're going to go to verse 4 in Bible Hub. So once again, there's things that I don't know, but so Elohim calls from the midst of the bush, calls to Moses, Moshe. And first of all, whenever you say someone's name or whenever you say things twice in Hebrew, there's huge emphasis on it. So that's very important. So he calls Moses, and I think he calls him truly to his soul. That's what I'm reading from it. Wayomer Hineni. And once again, I'm going to say this wrong because I don't know Hebrew, but this is what the whole thing's about. So Hineni. Moses, the way they translate it is here I am. This is an incredibly important word. What does it actually mean, and what does it come from? So the word Hineh, Hineh in transliterated, means to behold, to look, to see. It's kind of like getting your attention. Hey, look, I think that in the Book of Mormon, when the angels are talking to the temple initiates like Nephi and Lehi, I think that it's the angels, they're probably saying Hineh to the Nephi and Lehi as they're looking through the veil. So they have the veil, they're opening it for Nephi and Lehi, and they're saying Hineh. And so Nephi and Lehi, and I can go and look this up some other point, I'll share this with you, but they say, look. And then Nephi or Lehi looks and they see something and they say, this is what I see. And so you can translate Hineh to like behold or to look, a few things in English, but that's kind of what it talks about. So then we get to the word Hineni, and Hineni is behold me. And idiomatically, the way you would translate that is here I am, here am I. But it doesn't just mean, look, you can see me, I'm here. It means I am here to do your bidding. I am ready. And because it's so used so often, especially with temple stuff, it means I'm ready to make a covenant. So it's the correct response to, here something is here I am, I understand, and I'm ready. So in the Book of Mormon, as Nephi's explaining, getting shown visions, and the angel says, look, Nephi won't always say Hineni, but he will say, this is what I see and what I understand. I'm already here. I'm already participating in the covenant making, but this is what I see. The same thing is happening when you say Hineni. It says, I'm here. I am ready to make a covenant. So in my mind, when Moses says, behold, here I am, I think that what he's saying is I realize now that this is an interaction with God. I realize that I'm at the temple, and I realize that this whole scene is going to be a covenant with God that I'm about to make, and I'm about to learn things and do things that are going to guide me for the rest of my life, that I'm going to learn the proper path that I'm to be on. And we could talk about so many things a different day, but that's what I'd like to get to. I'd like to stop with Hineni, because it is such an important word. So how can we use it in our lives? Well, okay. I want to say two things. What did Moses get from it? What did Moses get from this section? why did he use the word Hineni? And then I want to say, what can we get from it? Um, I think God called Moses to his soul. And I think he called him at a deep level, and Moses' soul reacted. Like he heard it and he felt the call, and he knew how important this was, and he decided that he was ready. So he turned to the bush, and he answered when he heard Moshe, Moshe. He answered and said, I am ready to make a covenant. And I think that's an incredible example for us. So now what do we get from it? I think that we need to take that and we need to advance. I think way too often, God is always calling. God is at the burning bush. He is at the mountain. He is at the temple. And he is all around us if we're willing to look. But even if we're not willing to look, he's calling. He's constantly calling us to approach him, to be ready to make covenants, to uh, advance further into the temple and into the steps of life that we need to take to be more complete human beings. There's a million things that I'd like to add to that. I'm using euphemisms for so many things, but um, God wants us to be happier. He wants us to have joy. He wants us to understand that there are right ways to have joy and wrong ways to try to be happy, because they won't lead you to joy actually. And he's trying to lead us down those paths, but it all starts with us meeting him. So as he calls, we have to say, Hineni, here I am. I'm ready to make that covenant. I'm ready to start down this path. And everything's a beginning. If you've already been to the temple, if you've already had things explained to you, fantastic. But at some point, you're going to have to leave the temple. You're going to have to involve yourself in day-to-day life. And so that means that when God calls again, you're going to have to answer again, and you're going to have to say that. You're going to have to say Hineni. So even if you've made those covenants, you're going to have to listen and be ready to answer God and to try to draw closer to him, because he's calling. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to have joy, but there's only one way. And the first step is to go to the temple and say, Hineni, here I am. So thank you. I'm going to try to do this more often. I just wanted to start somewhere. So this is my start, and we can talk about it more later, but we're going to build on this, because you're going to see Hineni and Hineh principles. Hineh, and once again, I don't speak Hebrew, so I'm sorry, but you're going to see those all the way through the scriptures. You're going to see it everywhere. And I'm going to be reading a lot of the Book of Mormon and doing my personal study. And so you're going to be seeing it, and you'll be like, it's possible that's not how the translation is, but the principle remains. So anyway, have a good one.